it with both leaders, both Senator Schumer and Senator McConnell. They're in agreement that 15 minutes firm is the vote. So when we start this vote, folks have 15 minutes to get here after we start the vote to vote. And if they're not here, they're too late. So that's the idea. We've spent way too much time waiting for people. We have 3 amendments lined up, and we're going to vote them and be punctual. Senator Capito.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in full support of using the 15-minute deadline that we have anyway and actually enforcing this. There's a lot of interest in this bill, as there should be. There are a lot of amendments pending. We want to get as many members in and have their amendments in the queue as we possibly can. But if people don't come down and vote and show courtesy to everybody, I said in my last statements we're going to go to punitive measures. I'm not sure voting within the allotted time is really a punitive measure, but that's what we're aiming for, and I'm fully supportive of that.
I would just ask any staff, any members that are watching, staff, let your senators know it's 15 minutes. That's it. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the following amendments be called up to the substitute and be reported by number. Number 1 is Lee, 2279. Number 2 is Rosen, 2358. Further, that the Senate vote in relation to the amendments in the order listed, with no amendments in order to the amendments prior to a vote in relation to the amendments, with 60 affirmative votes required for the adoption of the Lee amendment listed, and with up to 4 minutes equally divided prior to each vote.
Is there objection? Without objection. The clerk will report the amendment by number.
The senator from Delaware, Mr. Carper, for Mr. Lee, proposes an amendment number 2279 to amendment number 2137. Senator from Delaware, Mr. Carper, for Ms. Rosen, proposes an amendment number 2358 to amendment number 2137.
Mr. President.
The senator from Utah is recognized.
Mr. President, in reference to my amendment number 2279, this is what we're trying to deal with here. In order to help expedite the review of projects that are subject to NEPA, Congress authorized in the FAST Act for states to assume the duties of conducting the NEPA analysis. For example, the Federal Highway Administration has entered into agreements with 7 states, including Alaska, Arizona, California, Florida, Ohio, Texas, and Utah, to assume this responsibility with great success, providing an opportunity for states to leverage their unique understanding of their own states in order to better carry out NEPA's requirements. To build on this success, Congress should look to expand the ability of states to partner with the federal government for these types of reviews in their state's water infrastructure projects. My amendment would require the Department of the Interior to set up a program similar to the existing Surface Transportation Project Delivery Program, so that any state may voluntarily assume the agency's NEPA responsibilities for their water storage infrastructure projects. As I said just a moment ago, states already have a history of successfully conducting this work in the transportation space. In 2020, for example, California conducted 33 environmental assessments, 32 findings of no significant impact, 2 environmental impact statements, 3 records of decision, and the list goes on and on. In just the last half of 2020 alone, Arizona conducted over 50 categorical exclusion analyses. These are clearly roles that states are able and excited to handle. In fulfilling these responsibilities, states would be subject to the same rigorous environmental requirements as their federal partners, employing the very same standards. Just as projects led by federal agencies can be halted due to insufficient NEPA analysis, states would also be held to the same standard. With much of the West experiencing a severe drought with dire consequences, allowing states to aid the federal government in NEPA review in order to expedite water storage infrastructure projects is not just common sense. It's a necessity. It's a matter of survival. I urge my colleagues to support Amendment 2279.
Mr. President.
The senator from Delaware is recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise in opposition to the amendment offered by our colleague from Utah. This amendment would undermine the National Environmental Policy Act, also known as NEPA, by allowing states to assume responsibility for undertaking complex reviews of federal action. These are reviews that Congress vested explicitly in the federal agencies who permit or license projects that could adversely affect our environment. NEPA is designed to ensure that federal agencies consider major actions carefully, to ensure those decisions do not unduly impact water quality, endangered species, community well-being, air quality, and other environmental resources. NEPA is a critical analytical tool that ensures that federal decision makers are better informed and that the affected community has an opportunity to engage and be heard. Today, as the world is in the midst of 6 great extinction events and climate change is having ever greater impact on our natural world, we should be making decisions more carefully than ever, not just to improve outcomes, but also to avoid wasting money on projects that are not resilient to withstand climate change. This amendment would instead turn over responsibility for that critical analysis to the states. The bill before us includes many environmental regulatory provisions, more in fact than many of us would prefer. However, it has been drafted in the spirit of bipartisan compromise. This bill is drafted includes provisions to set deadlines for project review schedule in order to reduce project review timelines. It provides or expands categorical exclusion from NEPA. It also permits permanently authorizes the Federal Permitting Improvement Steering Council. Unlike these provisions, which were the product of committee deliberation and compromise, the amendment that our friend from Utah has offered would significantly alter the process for federal environmental review without any committee deliberations on such major changes. These sweeping changes are inappropriate and unwarranted, and I urge our colleagues to join me in voting no.
30 seconds.
Without objection.
Mr. President, it's important to remember these are the exact same standards that would apply. We do this all the time in other areas. Federal regulatory agencies, on a continual basis with the blessing of Congress, are given authority to carry out a federal program. In fact, we already do this with NEPA in the context of the Federal Highway Administration. This works. States are competent. It's a matter of expanding the human resources to which we have access. These are the exact same standards. There is no environmental threat. This would just allow this stuff to get done faster. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is on Amendment 2279. Is there a sufficient second? Appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.